Good morning, boys and girls. This is your morning message for today, Tuesday. And this is our week that we're thinking about spring. So when you're listening to the morning message, I want you to take a look at some of the words that you will know that go along with our Spring Has Sprung book. So we'll greet each other this morning with this word. Mrs. Van Kampen had the very short greeting yesterday, and I have kind of the medium greeting. Our greeting says, hello. Hello. So there we can greet each other with that word hello. On the second sentence, boys and girls, let's go all the way through the sentence, all the way to the end. And can you tell me what is that mark right there? What is that mark at the end of that sentence? That's right, it is a question mark. And so we know that this sentence is asking us a question. And actually, if you look closely at this sentence, you will see that this is one of the sentences in your new Spring Has Sprung Emergent book. So read it with me, boys and girls. I think you know almost all of these words. Is it spring yet? Is it spring yet? And that was our question. This is also in your book, so you know this one already. And then our last sentence is the answer to this question. And this is in our book as well. And it says, this is one of our sight words. Yes. Spring. You see how those two words go together? And then look at is here. Exclamation point. So that means an excited mark. Let's read that in an excited voice. Yes, spring is here. So boys and girls, that is our morning message for today. Let's read it all together. Hello. Is it spring yet? Yes, spring is here. Very good, boys and girls. I'm going to turn my morning message over so that we can see some of the different sentences that we'll be looking at today that go along with some of our spring writing that Mrs. Van Kampen and I would like you to do. Now, I am going to pretend right now that all of you are sitting in our circle time. And so I'm going to pretend to see all of your smiling faces. So I can see Connor and AJ and Weston. And I see Carson and Braden and Carter and Reagan, and I see Gibson and Addison, Jack and Ellery. I see Esther and Jonathan, and I see Joel and Cora and Alina. It's very good to see you, boys and girls, today. I'm having a good time pretending that I can see your beautiful faces, even when we're far apart. So think with me today, boys and girls, about springtime. We have senses that God has given us. There are 5 senses that God gave us. He gave us the sense of seeing, hearing, smelling, feeling, and tasting. So those are our different senses, boys and girls, that God has given us to explore our world and to enjoy our world. All of those things help us to enjoy God's world very much. I'm glad I have all of my senses to be able to enjoy each different part of God's world. So in the springtime, boys and girls, we can use those senses and we can see and taste and touch and feel and hear all of those different things in the springtime. And that is what I want us to think about today. Our sentences today will take each one of those senses and try to put a word to each of those senses, one of those things that you can do. So, for example, we have our first sentence here. In spring, I see. Now, I drew a little face with some eyes so that I could remember that this is the word see. And you'll have that on your paper too, so maybe you want to do that. Draw a couple of little eyeballs to help you remember. Think about, what do you see in the spring? Yesterday, when I took my spring walk, I saw flowers blooming on trees and bushes around my house. I saw beautiful bright flowers growing right in the middle of my grass. I saw birds that were flying around. I saw a bird's nest. I saw so many things on the trees. There are starting to be teeny, teeny, tiny little buds and little leaves that are starting to pop out, and I saw those. So in the spring, you can see a lot of different things that are changing. Our next sentence says, in spring, I smell. And here's a little face with a nose to help us to remember it's about our smelling sense on this sentence. What do you smell in the spring? I smell a lot of things out here in the spring. I can smell the grass. There's a certain smell to grass when it's starting to get new and fresh and growing. I smell mud, and sometimes I can smell some of the flowers that are on the bushes and the trees. When the wind blows just right, you can kind of smell those things, really pleasant. Some of the smells aren't very pleasant. We live right in the middle of the country, and some of the smells are things from the fields, and they don't smell so great, but it's great. It means that things are growing. So that's our sense of smell. The next sentence, boys and girls, says, in spring, I taste. And I did a little mouth here. We're going to come back to this sentence because I feel like a taste in the spring is one of the hardest sentences for us to write. So I'm going to help you with that one. Our next sentence talks about feeling. In spring, I feel. And here's a little hand to show what I can feel in the spring. Yesterday, I felt a worm. And that was kind of a wiggly feeling. I put it on the middle of my hand and it kind of wiggled all over. And it felt kind of funny, kind of tickly. I also have felt the flower petals. Oh, they feel like kind of velvety. And the new grass that's growing. I also have felt a lot of dirt on my hands because I've been weeding in the dirt and planting some things. So I had a lot of feelings with my hands in God's nature. And our last sentence here says, in spring, I hear. So what can you hear in the spring? This morning I took a walk, and I am not kidding. It was like a bird invasion. I heard hundreds and hundreds of birds in my trees. It was amazing. And now God is sending us some wind. And oh, I can hear that wind whipping around. And I can hear it outside kind of howling. So that's a sound that you could put down too. I hear wind. And you could sound that word out and write that out. Let's go back, boys and girls, to this sentence right here about what we can taste in the springtime. So in this one, in spring, I taste, and I wrote the letter A here. I taste A. And I wanted to tell you a couple days ago in spring, it was such a beautiful day. We took a blanket, we spread it on the grass, and we had our lunch right on the blanket and enjoyed the sunshine while we were eating. So I am going to choose a word that tells about that, of something I tasted in the spring, and it is the word picnic. In spring, I taste a picnic. What do you think picnic begins with? The beginning sound of picnic. Do you remember picnic in our Zoophonics with Pee Wee Penguin? That's right. It is the letter P. So I am going to write to start and write a P here. I. There's that any inchworm, letter I. And that's the letter C. Nigel Night Owl. Letter N. Pick. Another I, any inchworm. And it ends again with that Katina, cat. Katina, cat. So here we wrote the word picnic. In spring, I taste a picnic. So boys and girls, when you fill out your sheet today for Mrs. Van Campen and I, we want you to think of all these different senses and the things that you see, smell, taste, feel, and hear in the springtime. Boys and girls, it was so good to talk with you today, and I can just imagine all your faces. Now I can imagine that you're going to get right to this work and get it right done, and we would love to see a picture of how it turns out and to see how you the sentences you came up with for all of your sentence. Love you and miss you. Hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.